Buenas and half a day to our listeners on Guam and in the CNMI. It's now time for Total Health right here on Joy FM Radio, where your questions get answered by health professionals. If you have any health-related questions, we would love to hear from you. Call your questions and comments in at 472-1111 or text or WhatsApp 686-9999. If you're in the CNMI, please call 323-1113. Welcome everybody to Total Health.
Half a day and welcome to Total Health. Thank you for tuning in online or streaming, and we're streaming from our Facebook page. We have today Dr. Jonathon Thorp and Tina Heinrich. And the topic for today, I believe, is on nutrition.
It is, and I'm just so thrilled to be back here once again with Joy FM and Total Health. This is just a really a highlight of my week to be able to be here and to be joining our listeners across Guam and Micronesia and the entire listening area for Joy FM as we talk about health and nutrition specifically today. And I'm really thrilled that Tina Heinrich, physician assistant at the Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, lifestyle medicine specialist, and is here today to talk about this important topic with me. And the field of nutrition is so broad and just so much to know about this field that I have to admit that I still feel like I'm a preschooler at some days. And I've been studying this stuff for a long time. But every time I look and I find some new article or new study out to show something about how food can truly be our medicine, it just really drives home the point that our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that God has made us in a very special and unique way. And what's just beautiful to see is that science is now catching up to a 6,000 plus year old reality that plants, vegetables, fruits, grains, herbs are the most healthy for us in our bodies, isn't it, Tina?
Yes, that's right. I mean, really going back to the Garden of Eden.
Right, exactly. So going right back to Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3 of the plan that was laid out there for us. And, it's such a tough thing for so many of our patients of what to eat. And I like this quote. So it's by Jackie Gleason. And I don't know who Jackie Gleason is, but the quote is quite funny. The second day of a diet is always easier than the first. Do you know why?
Why?
It says, by the second day, you're off of it already. So, the challenge of making lifestyle change is really tough. And I don't know how many hours every day as I sit and work with patients one-on-one with chronic illnesses and chronic diseases, trying to instill the importance and then help them make stepwise changes to improving one's diet and one's health is really, it's a challenge, but also really exciting. Jack LaLanne said, exercise is your king and nutrition is your queen. Together, they create your fitness kingdom. I think that's a great way of looking at it. So, yes. Tina, let's talk about nutrition. Tell me, how would you define nutrition, and why is nutrition important?
Good question. You think of nutrition, it's the food that we eat, and what that those foods compose of as well. And the reason why it's important, especially on a day-to-day basis, as we're seeing patients, is it's really is linked with a lot of diseases. So meaning a lack of certain foods or nutrition. People are actually more risk for getting certain diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. So a lot of these chronic diseases, long-term diseases, have a strong link to nutrition.
Absolutely. About 80 to 90% of our illnesses that we deal with as humans come from the food or the environment or choices that we make. And I really can't stress the importance of choices. We have a choice every moment of every day, whether it be physical activity or inactivity, whether it be eating something healthy, nutritious, or eating something highly processed and unhealthy, whether it be drinking good liquid or bad liquid, whether it be inhaling fresh air or air polluted with tobacco and other things in it. So much of it comes down to choices, isn't it?
Yes. And we each, that's the good news. We each have a choice every single day. So even though you made bad choices yesterday, today is a new day, and you can start fresh and new. And I always think it's kind of like going down a path. Sometimes you may have you get off on the side of the road, but you're still going down straight. I think, and not to get, I think, discouraged. Sometimes patients can get discouraged. They're like, oh, I fell off, but it's like, oh, that's okay. Just get back on and you just keep on moving forward. The thing is, you're making that effort to move forward, and it will get easier. Certain habits will be more, easier. I always like to say, through our wellness programs, every time I have a patient go through a program, they may not do everything at the end of the program, like after the program is finished, but I will find when I ask the patients, they always will do at least one of those principles. So maybe they said, I never used to drink much water. Now I drink water, or I got off caffeine, or now I exercise, or actually I just started eating vegetables for the first time. And I find every time they do another week program, like a 7-day detox, 7-day shape up, they actually grab another principle.
Right.
And so, and then pretty soon these are just normal routine habits,
Right. And let me just put that in context.
Yes.
So for our listeners who may not be knowing what Tina's referring to, is that we both work at the Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic. And at the Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, we have a number of different lifestyle-based educational and nutrition programs. And so for those of you who are living here in Guam, I'd highly encourage you to come to the clinic and check out what options there are. Most of the programs are covered by insurance with either no or minimal copay.
Yes.
And they're just truly transformative. I mean, I don't know how many people have come away with losing 10 pounds, 12 pounds in a week, and they just feel so much better. And they're like, oh man, living, why did I not know about this years ago? And, we're able to decrease medications, get people off medications. You've shown me some numbers of some of your patients, Tina, of some of the work you've done in coaching and helping them. And so it really gives you some good, solid building blocks for making lifestyle change. And I think your point is spot on, that it's not necessarily radical transformation in every area of one's life, but it's choosing one, making decisions based on one area and then acting on a regular basis, daily basis, to implement that consistently. The whole concept of how habits work, how our brain works around creating habits, following habits, and changing habits is really fascinating. That's not going to be the discussion or our focus today, because we're going to look at nutrition, but I think different time we need to talk about habits.
Yes.
Because everything, whether or not we get up and we get out of our bed with our left foot first or right foot first, is actually a habit.
Right.
It starts from the moment we choose to get out of bed, and what's the next step after that is a lot of it's kind of those ingrained habits that we have. So as we look at the spectrum of dietary options out there, and nutritional options out there, if you ask a group of healthcare professionals, let's say 10 in the room, you'd probably get 15 different answers of what you should eat. And so there's a lot of muddy and murky water out there, if I could use that analogy, as to what is a good choice when it comes to nutrition and what is the, quotes, best diet. I hate the word diet. I don't use it. I say nutrition. What is the best nutritional option that I have for it? So, I really like the quote by author and food blogger Michael Pollan: "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." That's such a brilliant statement. It's like, if every one of my patients would embrace that principle, I could get them off most of their medications and they'd feel so much better.
Yes.
So what is your take on, quotes, the best diet?
Very interesting. Yes. So I like to, really keep it simple. When I describe this to patients as well, and really coming down to I call it a whole food, plant-based diet. So, what does that really mean?
What does that mean?
Yes.
There's several key phrases there.
Yeah. So think of whole food. So that's actually the entire food. So think of like an apple. You actually eat the entire apple.
So in other words, when you go to eat an apple, you recognize it's an apple.
Yes.
Okay.
You're like, oh yeah, this is an apple. I can see what this is.
So it's not apple juice or apple pulp in a apple fritter. It's actually an
apple. Yes. Actually, the freshness of the apple. So
that's what you mean by whole food.
Yeah. So whole food.
Give us a few more examples of whole food.
Yeah, so think of like carrots. You actually know it's a carrot. It's a whole food. You can think of like broccoli or beans.
Broccoli, I love broccoli. My 1-year-old says, or my 3-year-old says broccoli.
Oh yeah, I
loves broccoli. But you mean the dark outer part with all the little flowers on there, and the stem. That would be a whole food.
Yes. Because you pick it. I think it. think of it this way too, how you can pick it from the ground. So if you can pick it from the ground or
off
on
a
trees,
tree or vine or
yes,
something. Yeah.
yes. So it is original context.
Right.
So anything, if you think like, oh yeah, I can pick this from the ground, then it's a whole food. So for instance, like bread, you can't pull that from the ground.
I thought
Yes.
you could. Even
So-
that whole grain.
Yeah, yeah.
nutritious, You know, what is it?
Yes.
It's like grains that have been sprouted. So sprouted grain
Yeah,
bread,
yeah.
I can't pick that out of the ground?
That's right. So it's not quite a whole
Yeah.
food, but I mean still some degree of that it's nutritional. But if we're going to the real whole food
Right.
and then plant based, so really is it a plant?
Uh-huh.
And so kind of just keep it simple like that. So does it grow on the ground or on trees?
So
And
growing on 4 legs with a face does not count?
that's right. not quite on that. So
Yeah. And I don't mean
yeah.
to be condescending, rude, or inconsiderate to our listeners who may be eating animal products. I say that completely tongue-in-cheek. I'm joking when I say that.
Yes.
And I say it to my patients all the time. If it came from a mother or it
Yes.
had a mother, then you need to think twice about eating it.
Yes.
Because our animal products are filled with disease, and they are
Right.
high inflammatory foods that cause a lot of illness forward.
Right. And I think that's the main thing. We are very concerned about our patients. So we want to not only improve their health by either reversing or really improving the disease, but we really want to, as much as possible, get them off of medications and
Right.
have complete reversal if it's possible of some of these diseases. So we really want to give like the optimum diet. So if we're going to get the optimum diet, that's really what it would look like if we're thinking about improving a reversal of diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. So it is possible. We do see it at the clinic, and patients are able to do some of these. They're able to add this to their
Right,
lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, the patients who've implemented it for on my panel, I mean, they truly have a revolution in their health and feel so much better. So I just want to, before we go to break, summarize again. So what I hear you saying, Tina, is that from your perspective, the research really puts a lot of weight on a whole food plant-based diet.
Yes.
And whole food being, if you recognize what it is, so an almond, you can recognize an almond.
Yes.
You can recognize a pecan. You can recognize a bean. You can recognize a black bean, pinto bean, garbanzo bean, whatever it is.
Yes.
You can recognize the whole rice kernel or the whole oat
Yes.
kernel. The more you can recognize of what it would have looked like on the plant is probably the healthiest option for us to be eating.
That's correct.
And what I hear you saying is, and I would totally agree with it, that a whole food plant-based diet leads to disease reversal in heart disease, in diabetes, and so many diseases.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
just the COPD, for example, prostate cancer, breast cancer, low-grade prostate cancer, low-grade breast cancer. We can reverse with these whole food plant-based diets. So, yeah, I totally agree, and that's what I say over and over again. It's like a record stuck on repeat on Joy FM.
Yes.
Like the station manager might have fallen asleep, and the record plays over and over again. And my record is whole food plant-based diet. With that, we're going to go to break.
We are going to a break. Call in your question on nutrition on Guam, 671-472-1111. In the CNMI, 670-323-1113. You can text, WhatsApp, and signal us, 671-686-9999. Or you can leave a message on our comment section. We are streaming live right now on Facebook.
You wake up in the morning, and you get up. Not always easy, is it? But God said to find joy in each day. And sometimes that joy is found right here. You keep moving in a better direction the longer you listen. You just might be inspired to pour your purpose into things that move you along the path where God walks with you. Your support is something that encourages you to tackle each new day because you're here to share it with us. Joy FM, family-friendly radio.
Si Joe Mossy, and thanks for listening to Total Health on Joy FM. We want to hear from you. Call in with your health-related questions at 472-1111 in Guam or in the CNMI. The number to call is 323-1113. Text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, back to the show.
And welcome back to Total Health here on Joy FM. We're so glad that you're joining us this afternoon. I'm here today with Tina Heinrich, physician assistant at the Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, works in primary care and also in lifestyle medicine. And I'm thrilled to be able to be talking about the topic of nutrition with her. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to give us a call at the numbers listed, and we'd be happy to do our best at answering any questions that you may have. So, Tina, we were talking about the optimum nutrition, kind of the optimum quote-unquote diet. What should I be eating? And before we went to break, we talked about the whole idea and the concept of a whole food, plant-based diet. So I want to just talk about a question that is commonly asked is how will I know if I'm getting adequate nutrition? So help walk us through when the patients ask you that, how do you break that? How do you answer that question for them?
Yes, I like to, just break it down simply. Like, for instance, I would say one of the most important foods is going to be your vegetables at the top. So I say try to get at least 3 cups of those a day. You can, of course, do more than that.
And on a plate,
yes.
How much does 3 cups typically look like on a plate?
Right. So it could be actually about half your plate.
Okay, so half a plate or 3 cups of vegetables.
Yes. And then your fruit, you want to aim for at least 3 cups a day, too. So like an apple would be considered a cup. Banana.
A cup of papaya, pineapple.
Yes.
Soursop. Oh, man.
That's right, soursop.
I never ate soursop before coming to Guam.
Oh,
it's my new favorite fruit.
Yes, it's delicious. I had some this week. It was very good.
Just mouth-watering. So about 3 cups of fruit.
Yeah, so 3 cups of fruit. And then going down to at least a cup of beans, legumes. So this could be black beans, kidney beans, garbanzo beans, lentils as well, too. And this is very important.
Are they hard to cook?
Good question. So they really aren't. If you there's a couple ways you can do it. If you have a slow cooker, you just soak them overnight, like 8 hours, and then rinse them, and then put them in the slow cooker again, and turn it on low, and go to work, come home, they're done. Yeah. Lentils are otherwise quicker. You can just rinse them and then cook them, and kind of like rice, you boil them and put them on low, and about 30-40 minutes they're done. So that's a really good legume to do.
Right.
And it's very important because it keeps you full. So especially I call this the secret weight loss food.
Right.
So especially if you're trying to lose weight, you want to do beans in your diet, and because it really will keep you full for about 6 hours or so. I find.
Listeners, get careful.
Yes.
What do we say? It keeps you full. And you're dieting, you're losing weight, and you feel full at the same time.
Yes, that's
right.
Whoa,
I like it.
Yes, that's right. We don't believe in starvation
so what
diets.
is it? Yes. What is it in the legumes that make you feel full?
It's a combination. You have, of course, it has protein in it, but a lot of it is also fiber.
Oh, fiber.
There's a lot of fiber. So fiber really is what really bulks up the food. Also, it helps. So you actually have smooth bowel movements, actually. So you don't get constipated. So you have to sit on the toilet a while. So those are important foods. And also for diabetics, it lowers blood sugar.
Right.
So it helps.
The analogy I use is a big sponge.
Yes.
And fiber does not work unless you're drinking water with it.
Yes.
And so it acts like a sponge in a sense. Now I'm using really simple language here. It basically vacuums out the colon. Okay, so it pulls out a lot of the fat, pulls out a lot of the cholesterol, and it traps a lot of the sugar, releasing it slowly over time, so you don't get that super high spike after you eat a meal. So fiber is super, super important, and that's what beans and legumes have.
Yes, that's right. And then you think about your whole grains. So especially for our diabetic patients, barley is the lowest glycemic grain, so that's a good grain to do. Brown rice, quinoa. So at least a half a cup of that a day.
Right.
And then going into your nuts and seeds.
So just back up here because I don't want everyone to get lost. So half of a plate, about 3 cups of vegetables. Again, vegetables you can recognize.
Yes.
And vegetables that haven't been dumped with a lot of sauces over top of it, steamed or raw vegetables. So salad or steamed, like squash steamed is very tasty.
Yes.
Eggplant that's been steamed, a little bit of salt and on top of it's very, very tasty. And then so that's roughly half of a plate. You're saying about a cup of beans.
Yes.
And beans would cover about a quarter of your plate.
That's right.
Then.
That's right.
And then you want the other corner of the plate being the whole grains.
Whole grains.
Okay,
that's right.
Whole grains.
That's right.
An example of whole grains would be the whole rice kernel, not polished rice,
That's
not the
right.
white rice, but the polished rice that looks brown in color.
Right.
That outer core is high in fiber. It has a ton of micronutrients that are really important, and vitamins. I mean, we buy vitamins. Why buy vitamins? Just eat the whole grain, folks.
Yes, yes.
And you can get that nutrition that you need right from that whole kernel. And then about 3 cups of fruit over the course of the day.
Yes.
That can give a lot of micronutrients from that also, and of course they taste very good too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at. I think you said
yes,
nuts.
and then also nuts and seeds. Now you don't necessarily need a lot of these types of foods. Usually I say about like a fourth a cup a day. If you're trying to lose weight, I would say no more than a fourth a cup.
Right.
And you can also do chia seeds, ground flaxseed for
Right.
omega-3. So adding those, almonds, walnuts, pecans.
I started
yes.
putting ground flaxseed on our oatmeal. I make breakfast every morning.
Oh, yes.
And so I had to convince my kids, ages 3 and 5, and my 1-year-old too. She's not. I don't have to work so hard with her, but the other two are like, "What's that in my oats, Dad?" I said, "It's something really healthy. It's brain food." And so now they come and ask me, "Dad, are we having brain food for breakfast?" And
I
so,
love
but
it.
it's I say it tongue in
is.
cheek, but I'm actually dead serious that the omega-3s are
Yes.
vitally important when it comes to brain development.
Mm-hmm.
And so omega-3s come in many forms, but ground flaxseed, which is readily found in many stores here on the island,
Yes.
is super important for
Yes.
that. And it's high in fiber too.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. It's very high in fiber, and really you want to buy it when it's in its whole like whole seed,
Right.
And then you can grind it. So usually I just have a coffee grinder. I just grind it, and then I
that's such a good
put
point.
put it in the fridge. And the ideal would be to do it every day, but sometimes that's not possible
Right.
because it does oxidize, so it loses its nutritional value. But you
Right,
want to
because
do
if you eat
fresh.
the full seed, the full
Yes.
flax seed or kernel, you won't necessarily have the release of the omega-3s from it.
Right.
I don't have a coffee grinder right now, and we ran out of ground flaxseed, so I'm
Yes.
adding just full flaxseed right now to our breakfast. It's still good. It's not bad,
Yes.
but it's not as good as having the ground seed.
Yes.
Yeah, no, exactly. So you want about a quarter cup of seeds over the course of the day.
Yeah, so you right, so nuts and seeds, you, at least like a fourth a cup, depending if what your weight loss goals
Right.
are. But
And I think if I remember correctly, that the seeds are high in our fats. Is that correct?
that's right. That's
Okay.
right.
And healthy or unhealthy fats?
So they're healthy fats, which is good. So those are, they're really concentrated, healthy fats.
Right. Okay. So again, we have kind of 3 big categories. We have on our plate, roughly half the plate be vegetables, half of the plate being grains in their whole form. Quarter of the plate being grains, and quarter of the plate being our protein corner primarily, which is the legumes that we have. And then you kind of a few seeds on the side and the fruit on the side also.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So when you look at kind of your plate, and you would put it in technical terms, how do you break down that different area of the plate? What are some of the major nutrient categories that we're seeing there?
Right. So you have your 3 main ones. It's going to be, you're going to have protein, you're going to have carbohydrates, and then also fats.
But wait a minute.
Yes.
Carbohydrates.
Yes.
There's such a bad rap about carbohydrates. So why are you saying that we need carbohydrates? Everybody says no carbs.
Yes. So believe it or not, the complex carbs are actually basically the foods we've been talking about. So those are your beans, your fruits and vegetables. All those have some portion of carbohydrates in there.
Right.
So they are very important for disease reversal as well. And
they're important just for,
Yes.
I mean, there's a ton of vitamins in them, and a ton of micronutrients in our carbohydrate containing foods. So if we go on a low carb diet, we're actually starving our body of essential nutrients, and particularly the fiber that's so incredibly important when it comes to true, long-lasting, permanent disease reversal.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's very key to it. Make sure you have carbohydrates in your diet, and also you can get protein, such as legumes. Will have that, and believe it or not, actually some vegetables actually do have protein in them.
I know, like
too.
broccoli actually has a fair amount of protein in it.
Yes. It's interesting if you take broccoli and you actually compare it to a meat. It actually has more protein per calorie.
Isn't that so fascinating?
So,
and same if you look at like beans too. Like the number of the protein amount per 100 grams, for example, compared to meat is either equal or higher, and yet. oh, the only way you can get protein is from meat. That's the
Right.
general propaganda that's out there, and it's
Yes.
not true.
Right, that's true. That's true. I mean, you have lots of protein in your in your vegetables and your
Right.
beans,
Right, right, right.
And of course your nuts and seeds will
Right.
have.
And again,
fats.
coming back to this is now confirming evidence that we've had for 6,000 years that this is the diet that is the healthiest for us. This is how God created us.
Right.
And you look at the example, the text in Genesis chapter 2 specifically, where it talks about what was given to Adam and Eve in the garden. And what was it? It wasn't animals. It was
That's right.
it was the fruits of the trees, the nuts, the seeds, the produce from the ground, etc. For it. I've come to love taro here on the island, and grated taro with a little bit of water, steamed in the oven with some fresh herbs like rosemary. Oh my goodness, it is very, very tasty.
Oh, good, yes.
So there's
yes.
very good sources of protein and carbohydrates that are grown here on the island.
That's right.
You may not say, look at Doc, what are you talking about? Beans. I don't have access to beans here. I live on an outer island, and we don't have access to beans. And I say, okay, what did your ancestors 200 years ago eat before modernization occurred, before industrialization occurred, and before all the different trade routes were established? What would you have eaten back then? What was it? I mean,
yeah, it was taro, breadfruit,
Right.
Bananas,
Right. Mangoes.
some greens like
Right.
spinach,
and vines that might have been eaten or steamed. So if you're not sure what to eat and you are sick and ill, think about what your great-great-grandparents would have eaten and say to yourself, do I want to reverse my disease and feel better? Then maybe eat like your great-grandparents
That's
did.
right.
Yeah.
That's
So again,
right.
Eat food, mostly plants, and lots of it is kind of the best way to go. What is the biggest problem with our diets nowadays?
Yeah, I would say one of the major problems with our diets nowadays is of course it has changed from what our great grandparents used to eat, and it's become more processed. So not as much
whole food.
Whole food, and also you're thinking about a lot of it is dripping in fat, so lots of oil, and of course lots of salt has been added. So as in processed foods, and also just the amount of increase of animal products, animal foods, in the diet.
I had to
well.
laugh. I was reading the news earlier today and was reading about India and one of the South Asian countries, and I'm blanking the country name specifically. So India was looking at curbing the export of sugar, and the other South Asian country was going to put some price caps on oil, on palm oil. I'm like, folks, those two things need to disappear from our diet anyway. So you go ahead and put price caps on it and export blocks, because I'm happy if that's not in our diet and stuff. I mean, obviously they're going to find it from other sources, but the point is that it's widely consumed, so much so that that with the inflationary pressures that we're experiencing, that the prices are starting to go up, and the different countries are taking protectionist moves to protect their own resources for their population. But if we didn't throw out all the fiber that was on the outer hull of the granule for the sugar, for example, cane sugar. I mean, cane sugar is manufactured and ground down to white sugar eventually. And so it's like, well, that in itself, you lose a lot of nutrition, you lose a lot of the sugar by doing that.
Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is the biggest problem with our diets is really the fact that it's highly processed.
Right. Yeah. So high processed, and of course a lot of salt content. Interesting when you look at salt. Like, how do you know if you're getting too much salt? An easy way to do this, if you look at the label on the back and look at how many calories is on it. Now, if you're trying to keep below a 2,000 milligram or less salt content, you actually want the salt in milligrams to be less than the calories on the label. So let's just say you're looking at a label and it says, oh, there's maybe 50 calories per serving, but then you look at the salt content and it's like 500. Then you're like, okay, that's way too much salt. It should be less than that the calories. So that's the one way you can figure out, like, okay, does this actually have too much salt in it? Or not?
No, that's a really good rule of thumb, and I've shared that with countless people. And I only discovered that rule of thumb about a year ago, and I was like, oh, that's so nice to use, and to be able to quickly glance at the food label and realize that, oh, you know what, we could very quickly identify as a high or low salt food. So, and salt is a micronutrient, so we need to be very careful how much sodium we get in our diet. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes for continuation of Total Health here on Joy FM.
Word made fresh.
Exodus 17:12.
When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up.
The Israelites were in a fierce battle.
God had given Moses the key to victory.
The only requirement, obedience.
Moses needed to stand on the hillside and keep his hands lifted in the air.
If he did, the battle would be won.
If he failed, so would his people.
When Moses found it hard to do what God asked him to do,
He called in his accountability group.
Aaron and Hur helped Moses stay on track.
When he found it hard to do it alone,
Two friends,
helping Moses obey God's command,
lives were saved.
and a battle won.
When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up.
Who's helping you trust God enough to obey him?
Joy FM,
Joy FM.
with another Word Made Fresh.
Family-friendly radio. JoyFMradio.net.
Welcome back. You're listening to Total Health on Joy FM. Call in with your health-related questions to 472-1111 in Guam. If you live in the CNMI, we want to hear from you too. Call 323-1113 or text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, here's more Total Health.
I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be talking about the topic of nutrition. I'm just literally glowing here with excitement as I talk with Tina about these different important nutritional questions that we face every day from so many of our patients, because there's so many misconceptions out there, so many bloggers who frankly don't have any right in talking about the topic because they have no authority. They don't understand really what they're even saying. So please forgive me, but I'm going to be pretty blunt that there's so many different types of misconceptions out there. So I'm going to just go through quickly a number of different questions related to misconceptions. Should I eat fruit because it contains sugar?
You should eat fruit.
Okay, you
That's
should.
right.
So even though it has sugar, you should eat fruit.
That's right. Remember, it's a whole food.
Right.
And so it's viewed differently than like table sugar.
Okay,
So,
because it has the fiber in it, it helps regulate the release of sugar.
Yes.
There's vital vitamins and nutrients that you can only get in fruits.
That's right.
And
That's
a rule of thumb would be you want to eat a rainbow of colors every day. So
Yes.
some of the greens, some of the dark reds, some of the yellows, some of the whites to get all the nutrients that you need. Next question, do I have to drink milk to get calcium?
So you don't, actually, believe it or not. And, interesting what we've been told since I was little, as we think, milk, it's good in calcium, but we're actually finding that it actually is the opposite. It actually depletes calcium from our body.
Leaches
Yeah,
calcium.
leaches out. And so really you want to focus more on plant sources of food, and those are going to be more of your greens,
Greens and beans.
Beans, yes. That's going to be better sources of calcium. And believe it or not, sesame seeds is one of the highest sources of calcium. So like tahini, like
I
hummus.
ate sesame seeds for lunch.
Yes,
Yay!
perfect. So that's good sources of calcium, and if you just think about it too, think about the countries with the highest rates of dairy intake. It's going to be the States and Europe, but those are the countries also that have highest incidence of osteoporosis, and countries in Asia and Africa where they hardly do any dairy intake, you really don't see much of that. So really focusing more on plant foods for more calcium.
Okay, so it's okay to eat fruits. It's
Yes.
better to focus on their beans and greens for our calcium.
Yes.
Next question, are fresh vegetables better than frozen vegetables?
Yeah, so ideally would be fresh vegetables. It may not always be available, so I would say if you do fresh vegetables first, and I always have frozen as a backup in my freezer, so in case you run out, you still have vegetables
And
options.
it may be because we live in somewhat of a food desert here in the middle of
Yes.
an island in the middle of the Pacific.
Yes.
It may be only practical to buy frozen vegetables,
Yes.
and it's better to get frozen vegetables over canned vegetables because there's not much less salt in those vegetables too.
That's right.
Right.
And also to think about too, I had learned this from one of our dietitians at the clinic. actually berries is better to buy frozen than fresh.
Oh, I did not know that.
Because when they ship it from the States, it takes a long time to ship, so they're more they're not as ripe. Whereas when they are ripe, they freeze them. So actually, berry content or berries is better buying frozen on island.
Right. Okay, got it. So keep on going down here. We've already talked about carbs. Is organic food more nutritious?
If you have the choice, it is better to buy, organic food. But I think more of the issue also is just people are not getting enough vegetables and fruits in general.
Right.
So it's better to eat any fruits and vegetables. Now, if you, like I say, have the choice for certain foods, that would be the better option. If it's reasonably priced, it's not too much out of your budget.
Sure.
As well.
I would rather a listener eat more fruits and vegetables than eat less and buy organic.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
It's true. There are potential harms from the chemicals and stuff put on fruits and vegetables. I grew up on a farm. I am an apple cherry farmer at heart. I love growing things. I have sprayed thousands of pounds of chemicals on trees. I hate to admit it, but I have, and I'm still fine.
Yes,
So if anyone should be sick, I should be sick.
Right.
So I think we have to be careful that we don't swing too far to the organic spectrum and we price ourselves out that we can't afford it. So it's better to focus on buying fruits and vegetables that we can afford than worrying about the organic so much. Now, if you can afford it, by all means, go towards the organic.
Right.
Okay, another quick question. What about supplements? Do I need supplements if I'm eating a whole food plant-based diet?
Good question. There's really only two supplements I would say, depending on their health, other concerns. But I would say generally if you're healthy, if you're doing a whole food plant-based diet, you also want to do a vitamin B12 supplement. Usually, depending on it, but usually it's 2,000 micrograms chewable a day. And so that will help with your making sure you're not having any neurological problems from being deficient in that. And actually, believe it or not, even our patients that do eat animal products, they actually are low in vitamin B12.
I've noticed that many times.
So too. And some such as metformin, that medication also can cause low vitamin B12. So
which is seldom known.
Yes, which is seldom.
Good catch there.
Yes. So actually, most patients should actually be on vitamin B12 supplement. So at least 2,000 micrograms, daily is good. The other one is actually vitamin D.
Yes.
So even though we live on an island, I find patients may not necessarily go outside, but even if they go outside, they may not be absorbing the vitamin D as well. Whether they may have diabetes, so their liver is not functioning as well. So I would recommend going on a vitamin D supplement. At least have it checked by, when you go into the clinic, you can find out what it is. Usually kind of a base dose is usually we say about 2,000 units, a day that you can do. But, check with your clinic and see what your range
check
is.
with the doctor. My recommendation is for most of my patients to aim for a level between 50 and 75.
Yes, that's
now,
right.
30 is technically the level that's technically within normal range, but there's a lot of health benefits to getting it up higher, and so I strongly recommend to aim for that 50 to 75.
Yes.
The rest of the nutrients and the rest of the supplements, I would say, most of the time cause expensive urine because they're mostly water soluble and mostly they are peed out. So if you're eating a spectrum of colors in your diet, you are getting all the vitamins you need.
That's right. So you can save money on vitamins, just buy a whole food plant-based.
Support the farmers. Don't support the pharmaceuticals.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just talk about kind of the practical effect of a whole food plant-based diet. When you think about the effect on disease, what's the actual outcomes when we think about heart disease, when we think about diabetes, when we think about cancer? Share with us some numbers that would interest our listeners.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go into some of the studies. So this is a study on type 2 diabetes. So this is very interesting. They took a small study sample of 20 men. These were with type 2 diabetes. And they wanted to test the theory that a plant-based diet improves diabetes because it was lower in calories, which led to weight loss. So they were thinking, maybe it's just because of weight loss. That's why their diabetes
You mean
improved.
just because of low calories?
Yes. So that was a theory that they were looking at. So they basically put the patients on a high-fiber diet, a plant-based, with sufficient nutrients that they did not lose weight.
Okay.
So the goal was they did not lose weight, but it's all plant-based. Interestingly, insulin patients who were taking insulin was discontinued in 11 patients.
Wow.
And reduced in the remaining patients within 16 days.
16 days.
16 days. A little over 2 weeks. 11 patients were able to get off their insulin.
So I got a question for our
Yes.
listeners. How much does insulin cost in a month?
Oh, yes.
And a vial of insulin
Yeah.
is ridiculously expensive. Depending on insurance, it can be several $100s
Right.
for a vial of insulin. And there's some of my patients that are going through several vials a month for it. So just think about putting food that will heal you. Let food be thy medicine, as Hippocrates said 2,000 years ago. And within 16 days, within 2 weeks, reversing the need, either reducing or completely coming off the need for the insulin. Phenomenal. Okay, keep telling us about the study.
Yeah, so really about half the patients were able to go off insulin within 16 days. So basically, a high-fiber plant-based diet helps to reverse diabetes despite no weight loss occurring, implies that the type of food consumed impacts blood sugar regulation.
Absolutely.
So it's not just weight loss, but it's really about the type of food that's consumed.
Right, and I try to remind my patients we need to aim for 10% weight loss. That's what we've been shown over and over again that will reverse most of our chronic diseases, 10%. We don't need to lose 100 pounds.
Yes.
We need to aim for 10%. So if you're 300 pounds, losing that 30 pounds is vitally important for your disease reversal and the burden of medications, especially if you combine it with a high-fiber diet.
That's right. That's right. And
So a high-fiber diet, what I hear you saying, reverses diabetes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And another interesting study was on breast cancer. And this is a study where in 2007, where they said there was a greater survival after breast cancer in physically active women with a high vegetable fruit intake, regardless of obesity. So in the study, they put 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, and they also did 180 minutes of exercise, moderate intensity, where you can talk, but you can't sing. That's what moderate intensity means. And they said this showed a reduction of 50% reduction in mortality. So meaning even if the patient was obese or overweight when they have breast cancer, it was no difference compared to someone that was maybe a healthier weight, as in they both had good outcomes with that too. So really showing that even a plant-based diet really does help with breast cancer.
So to summarize, we've got 2 things here. One is that it reverses diabetes. Number 2 is that it reduces the risk of death from breast cancer for those who have breast cancer.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Give us another factor here.
And another interesting study, this was actually on eggs. So this was a dietary research on eggs. So this is a Nurses Health study and a health professional study follow-up. And they said people with diabetes who consume more than 1 egg a day double their risk of heart disease compared to those who ate less than one a week. And they said eating more than 5 eggs per week was associated with increased risk of developing diabetes. So really, diabetes is affected by how eggs as well.
Right, it's an independent risk factor for the onset of diabetes. Yeah, no,
that's right.
Good point. Any other interesting studies that you can share with us?
Yes. And this is an EPIC study. And every 5% of calories from animal protein results in a 30% increase of diabetes.
Wow.
So that's huge, right?
Huge.
Just 5% calories of animal protein increases your risk for diabetes.
So I hope that we're catching the message here is that a whole food plant-based diet is nutritious. We don't need supplements except for maybe vitamin B12 and vitamin D. Unless, obviously, there's other reasons why you need to be on nutrition. So, again, consult your physician if you're not sure. So it's nutritious, number 1. Number 2, medications are expensive. And a whole food plant-based diet is not cheap. It's not free, but it's within the range of affordability. If you look at the relative cost of medicines, cost of medical care, and also meat is not cheap either.
Right.
It's not. I go to look at the meat section and I'm like, wow, that's really expensive. I see multiple packages of meat in people's cars. They're paying more for their meat than I'm paying for my veggies.
And even processed foods like chips, candies, those are not cheap.
It adds up very quickly and stuff. So
as well.
We need to wash out our pantry, cleanse our pantry, and get down, because it reverses diabetes, reduces the risk of death from breast cancer, lowers the risk of onset for diabetes, and so many other things. We're going to be back in just a couple minutes. This is Total Health Radio here on Joy FM. Thank you so much for joining us.
Look at a sunset and give God respect. Behold God's plan of salvation and give Him glory. Know that God made you and be inspired by the only one who really knows you. God made you, loves you, and His plan includes you. Enjoy His creation, accept His free gifts, and get to know Him. Partners like you make perspective available to all. Joy FM, family-friendly radio.
And we're back with more Total Health. Give us a call with your medical questions. Number to call in Guam is 472-1111. If you're in the CNMI, the number to call is 323-1113. Or you can text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. Now back to the program.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Joy FM for Total Health. I'm thrilled to be in the studio with Tina Heinrich. I'm Dr. Jonathon Thorp, internal medicine physician and lifestyle medicine physician. Tina works at the Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic in primary care. We work on the same hallway.
That's right.
And Tina is a physician assistant with a focus in primary care and lifestyle medicine. Tina, I have one quick question before we're going to make this really, really practical for our listeners today. Cooking of food. Just walk me through quickly. When I'm thinking about my vegetables, how should I be preparing my vegetables?
So if it's besides fresh vegetables, if you're going to cook it, you want to do more moist heat. So think of like broiling or boiling, stewing. That is going to be better than any type of dry heat. Okay. So just think moist is better than dry heat.
And we're going to need to take a future Total Health session on what's called advanced glycation end products. It's a very technical term, AGEs. And AGEs cause you to age. That's the easiest way to remember.
That's right.
And one of the biggest sources of AGEs in our diet is the dry heat. So grilling and roasting over an open flame really causes these changes to our food that's actually harmful and cancer-causing in our food. So you'd recommend in general to steam food if at all possible.
Yes, that's
okay,
right.
Got it.
That's right.
So Tina, we're going to take a role-playing activity here. I'm going to be your patient. Okay. I am 35, 40 years old. That's basically what I am, I guess. Today, my weight is 225 pounds. Okay. I'm not on any medications, and I'm coming to you because I feel tired, and I'm concerned about my health in the future.
Okay. You know, so one point that we would talk about, like in a visit, would be a lifestyle prescription.
Okay.
So a lifestyle prescription.
You mean a prescription for lifestyle?
That's right.
Not a prescription for medication.
That's right. It's a free.
It.
It's a free prescription too. You know,
no prescription that doesn't cost anything.
That's right. No side effects as well too.
No drug monitoring with labs.
That's right. That's right. So when we talk about this a lifestyle prescription, there's a couple of things that the goal that you need to meet, and I'll kind of we'll run through that, and then we'll kind of talk about an example of what that could be.
Okay.
So we call it a SMART goal. So SMART. So just spelling it out. So S means specific. So the specific type, measurable. Is it achievable? Is it realistic? And in the time connected with that. So let's walk through what would be examples.
Okay.
So if you came in to see me as a patient, is there anything in your lifestyle that you wanted to change?
You know, Tina, I have to admit don't have the energy I did a couple of years ago. I'm having a hard time keeping up with my kids. I'm not sleeping so well at night. I don't like my belly.
Right.
You know, I know I need to lose some weight. I just don't know where to begin.
Okay. Well, you know, one example would be to start with,
and let me, for the sake of our discussion,
yes.
I really think I need to change what I'm eating.
Okay, with your eating.
I'm going to start with my eating.
Okay.
Because I know I could probably exercise more.
Yes.
Too. But we will talk about that later.
Right. Okay, so we'll talk about nutrition. So we kind of have talked about what a good diet looks like. So a whole food plant-based diet, and break it down between your vegetables, your fruits, your beans, whole grains, and nuts and seeds. But I want you to think about, is there anything that you would like to try to do? You know, maybe you're doing part of it already, but you want to increase it.
You know, that's a really good question. Is you asked me, and you shared some really good knowledge here during our visit about different types of food. And as I thought about what I'm eating a lot of vegetables already. So maybe not a half of a plate, but I'm pretty close to that one.
Okay.
And they're not usually dumped with a bunch of sauces or drenched with a bunch of sauces. They're pretty healthy choice there. But I'd say the other half of my plate, because you said half my plate needs to be vegetables, so the other half of
Yes.
the plate isn't looking so good.
Okay.
So I need to focus, I guess, on probably my rice intake. I love rice.
Okay.
And well, I have to admit, I really like the meat too.
The meats. Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, help me. What should I be doing?
Yes. So I would encourage you. Is there anything else that you could add? So if you're doing meat already, there is another good source of protein that would be like beans
Okay.
or legumes. If you're doing kind of vegetables already.
Okay.
So
And you did mention that beans have that thing called fiber,
Yes.
which helps me. Is that correct?
That's right. So it helps
Okay.
you feel full, which
Okay.
helps with weight loss if
Okay.
that's some of your goals, and it really lowers blood sugars if you have
Oh, that's
diabetes.
really exciting.
So it
I
really,
don't as of yet, but I'm concerned about that in the future.
Yes. So beans are a good one
Okay.
to choose. So that would be an option too. Do you think you'd be interested in adding beans to your diet?
Yeah, I think for the next few months I need to try it.
Okay. Well, let's look at this. So so I'm going to write you a prescription. So
Okay.
normally what I do in the office is I would take out a piece of paper and I actually would write a prescription, put the patient's name and prescription. So let's look at this. So if we pick beans, so we say well-cooked beans, how much of that do you want to do? Like, do you want to do a half a cup, a cup?
I'm not used to eating beans right now,
Okay.
so I would like to start with a half to 3/4 of a cup.
Okay. So we'll, do you want to, so we want it to be specific. Do you want to do a half or 3/4?
Let's do half a cup
Okay.
because that's easy for me to measure.
Okay. So we'll do, so beans, a half a cup.
Okay.
Now, how often do you want to do this?
I'm going to be bold. I'm going to jump in the deep end of the pool. Let's just do it every day.
Every day. Okay.
Okay.
Now you aren't doing beans right now.
In this scenario, I'm not.
Yeah, in this scenario, of course not. So I would say that's a little bit too not a realistic goal because we of course want you to succeed with the goal.
Okay.
So let's make it more realistic. So we don't want to do perfection quite yet,
Okay.
but something
So
realistic.
you're saying that I should probably aim for a couple days a week, maybe?
Yeah. So what do you think would be a realistic?
Well, what if we did every other day?
Okay, so that would be
3 days a week.
3 days a week. Okay, so you're gonna do well-cooked beans,
Okay.
so half a cup, 3 days a week.
Okay.
And then how long do you want to do this goal? Do you want to do it for 2 weeks, a month, 3 months?
I think let's try it for 3 months.
3 months. Okay. So your prescription would be well-cooked beans, so a half a cup.
Okay.
You're gonna do it 3 days a week.
Okay.
For 3 months.
Okay, so I'm now going to flip back into my
Yes.
anchor role here and
Yes.
doctor role. So I'm no
Yes.
longer the patient. So
Yes.
what I hear you saying, Tina, here is you've made a very granular and very specific goal for the patient. So half of a cup.
Yes.
Very specific.
Yes.
It's measurable.
That's
It's
right.
half.
That's
You're
right.
Not full, not 3/4. You
Yes.
said, well, no, I want you to decide. Is it going to be half or
Yes.
3/4? So half of a cup, and it's measurable in the sense of how frequent it is.
Right,
So that's that
right.
time bound.
Right.
It's frequent over the course of the week and over the next 3 months. So you've made it time bound. So
Right.
you've hit the S, the specific.
That's
You've met
right.
the M, the measurable. We've hit the T, the time bound. So what are the other two goals? Now I'm back in my patient role.
Yes. So we've kind of laid out the goal for that. So we've done the time connection, that it's realistic, it's achievable. But I want to ask you the question. So for that goal that you picked, that lifestyle prescription, how confident are you that you can accomplish this goal? So 1 being you're not confident,
Okay.
10 being you're very confident that you can
Okay.
accomplish this goal.
I'm thinking about it now. I think I'm at about a 6.
Okay, so 6 is actually too low of a confidence level.
Okay. Oh, man,
So
shoot.
I know. So at that point in the visit, we would readjust the goal. So is it too long of a goal? Is it too often? What do you want to change in the
Let's narrow
prescription?
it down to 1 month.
Okay, so you want to do 1 month
1
instead.
month.
Okay.
So I'm going to try half of a cup of beans every other day. So 3 days a week,
Okay.
roughly 3 or 4 days per week, depending on which week it is. For the next month.
Okay, for 1 month, and then so with this new goal, how would you rate your confidence level?
I think that I'm higher, like probably 8 or 9.
Okay, yes. So that would be I would say
realistic goal for me.
passing.
Okay.
Generally, in the clinic, we want usually them above 7 for their
Right.
confidence level.
Don't give away our
I know.
answers,
We're
okay?
good. Now they're going to know what number to
Yeah.
say.
But the point is
but
that, and
yes.
coming back to my doctor role
Yes.
now, that we want to make it
Yes.
a goal that's realistic and
Yes.
attainable. So now we've hit all 5 components
Yes.
for the goal. We've hit it specific,
Mm-hmm.
half of a cup, specific, eat beans,
Yes.
well cooked, measurable, half of a cup,
Cup.
time bound, so every other day for the next month, is it actionable? Can I actually do it? And is it realistic?
Right.
How likely am I going to do it?
To
So
do
we've
it.
hit all 5 of those key points.
Yes.
You don't need to have a doctor or physician assistant, nurse practitioner, or anyone else walk you through this. You can do this on your own.
That's
you
right.
could say, hey, I just listened to this really great program on total health about nutrition, and I recognize I need to increase my fiber. And so I'm going to do this myself. And I'm going to incorporate a dietary change in it. And you could do the same thing for vegetables. You could do the same thing for the white rice. You could do the same thing for fruits. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
And really, you can do it. I've actually written lifestyle prescriptions for myself. My friend and I from Texas will actually go back and forth. So one of my ones I write routinely is sleep.
Oh, yes.
So hitting, by bed by maybe 9:30. So I have, it actually works really well when I have that accountability. So you can use it for water, all sorts of things for these lifestyle goals.
But the key is you don't make a mass goal, because I hear so many people come in, I'm going to change everything. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to fail.
Right,
let's make this, let's break this down. I have this one patient I'm going to tell you about just briefly.
Yes.
A middle-aged, well, actually older-aged gentleman came to my clinic, terribly out of control diabetes, couldn't breathe, just felt miserable, bad heart failure, etc. We made 2 goals. One, to eat 1 cup of beans every day. He loved beans. He wanted to eat them every day.
Excellent.
And secondly was to start moving. So he was going to stop eating a lot of his sweets and focus on the beans, and then start moving. And he was extremely had a lot of immobility issues, was on oxygen therapy. So he held onto the back of his sofa, under the back of a chair, and started walking in place. And he walked in place for 1 minute 3 times a day. And then 3 or 4 days later, I told him to increase it to 2 minutes. This was someone who went from sitting on his couch to walking 1,200 feet around his neighborhood, and walked into his pulmonologist's office before this change took place, barely able to breathe, came back 3 months later, and the pulmonologist was, what happened to you? You know, you're feeling so much better. You're looking so much better. He lost 20 to 30 pounds. Sugars came under control. Felt phenomenal. So this works. This works better than medicine.
That's right.
This is food is your medicine.
That's right.
As Hippocrates said. You know, there's so many challenges that our listeners deal with when it comes to nutrition. And I think of the Bible. What's a word of hope and encouragement you can give to people?
Yes. You know, one of my favorite verses, when I know it can be struggling doing some of these changes, but there's a verse, Philippians 4:13. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And this is going to be a huge encouragement for you.
Amen. So I hope that you are encouraged that God that will give you the strength to make these changes, to go back to that original Eden diet, and to be able to reverse chronic disease and prevent disease from occurring. So thank you for joining us here today on Total Health here on Joy FM. It's been a joy to have you here, Tina, with us. And I'm looking forward to the next visit that we're going to talk about advanced glycation end products or something else of interest. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to next week.
Be sure to check with your doctors before making any sudden life changes discussed today. Total Health is brought to you in partnership with Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, where health is their mission. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Thank you, and si Juas Maasi for listening to Total Health right here on Joy FM.